had a stable and horses for the kids to ride, and the teachers took away horseback riding privileges if I smacked somebody. After I lost privileges enough times, I learned just to cry when somebody did something bad to me. I'd cry, and that would take away the aggression. I still cry when people are mean to me. Nothing ever happened to the kids who were teasing. The funny thing about the school was, the horses had emotional problems too. They had emotional problems because in order to save money, the headmaster was buying cheap horses. They'd been marked down because they had gigantic behavior problems. They were pretty, their legs were fine, but emotionally they were a mess. The school had 9 horses altogether, and 2 of them couldn't be ridden at all. Half the horses in that barn had serious psychological problems. But I didn't understand that as a 14-year-old. So there we all were up at boarding school, a bunch of emotionally disturbed teenagers living with a bunch of emotionally disturbed animals. There was one horse, Lady, who was a good horse when you rode her in the ring, but on the trail she would go berserk. She would rear and constantly jump around and prance. You had to hold her back with the bridle or she'd bolt to the barn. Then there was Beauty. You could ride Beauty, but he had very nasty habits like kicking and biting while you were in the saddle. He would swing his foot up and kick you in the leg or foot, or turn his head around and bite your knee. You had to watch out. Whenever you tried to mount Beauty, he kicked and bit. You had both ends coming at you at the same time. But that was nothing compared to Goldie, who reared and plunged whenever anyone tried to sit on her back. There was no way to ride that horse. It was all you could do just to stay in the saddle. If you did ride her, Goldie would work herself up into an absolute sweat. In 5 minutes, she'd be drenched, dripping wet. It was flop sweat, pure fear. She was terrified of being ridden. Goldie was a beautiful horse, though, light brown with a golden mane and tail. She was built like an Arab horse, slender and fine, and had perfect ground manners. You could walk her on a lead, you could groom her, you could do anything you liked, and she was perfectly behaved, just so long as you didn't try to ride her. That sounds like an obvious problem for any nervous horse to have, but it can go the other way, too. I've known horses where people say, "Yeah, you can ride them, but that's all you can do with them." That kind of horse is fine with people in the saddle, and nasty to people on the ground. All the horses at the school had been abused. The lady they bought Goldie from had used a nasty, sharp bit and jerked on it as hard as she could, so Goldie's tongue was all twisted and deformed. Beauty had been kept locked in a dairy stanchion all day long. I don't know why. These were badly abused animals. They were very, very messed up. But I had no understanding of this as a girl. I was never mean to the horses at the school. Other kids were sometimes. But I wasn't any horse-whispering autistic savant either. I just loved the horses. I was so wrapped up in them that I spent every spare moment working the barns. I was dedicated to keeping the barn clean, making sure the horses were groomed. One of the high points of my high school career was the day my mom bought me a really nice English bridle and saddle. That was a huge event in my life, because it was mine, but also because the saddles at school were so crummy. We rode on old McClellans, which were honest-to-God cavalry saddles first used in the Civil War. The school's saddles probably went back to World War II, when they still had some horse units in the army. The McClelland was designed with a slot down the center of it to spare the horse's back. The slot